I have to thank the recently crowned holder of the UK's third great office of state for making this relevant again by talking about it in her recent speech. She goes out of her way to paint the attendees of the Unite the Kingdom rally the other Saturday basically as criminal and violent, without actually saying so, as well as mentioning the crowd size, which is the relevant thing here.
Like a lot of practicing Muslims, my faith is the most important thing in my life.
Sorry, wrong clip, but that's good to know.
On the 13th of September, 150,000 people marched through London. They did so under the banner of a convicted criminal and a former BNP member. While not everyone was violent, some were. And while not everyone chanted racist slogans, some did. Clear that in their view of this country, I have no place.
We can reserve judgment on that last bit, but how many people attended that rally? Because the number has been subject to a wide variety of claims. The official number, as reported by Reuters, London's Met Police said the Unite the Kingdom march, organised by anti-immigrant activist Tommy Robinson, was attended by around 110,000 people who were kept apart from a Stand Up to Racism counter-protest attended by around 5,000. Then, by way of contrast, we had this from his nibs. Numbers don't lie. Our Unite the Kingdom rally brought 3 million people onto the streets. Numbers indeed do not lie. People sometimes do. If there's enough of them, it is impossible to accurately estimate large numbers of people, whether you're hovering above them in a helicopter or worse still, actually right down there in the midst of them. And the more there are, the vaguer and vaguer your estimation gets, to the point when you're simply pulling numbers out of a hat. And if they represent something which you're favourable to, then you will naturally inflate and exaggerate the numbers, and if it's something you oppose, you will tend to play the numbers down. That 3 million claim was subsequently adjusted downwards the following Saturday in an email. 1 million brave souls gathered under a sky that seemed to roar with defiance. Quite the substantial downgrade, only to trickle up again a few days later. The Unite the Kingdom march saw millions take to the streets, etc. 3 million, a million, millions, these are not real numbers. These are numbers plucked out of a hat for the feel-good factor, and they absolutely rely on people having no idea of basic reality, i.e. London's entire population is only 9 million, and you can't cram fully 1/3 of that into 2 streets and a bridge. But the job can be done. I can't play this video on YouTube because of copyright issues, so if you want to see it, you can see it on my Twitter. The link is in the description. That video shows the most extensive area coverage of any of the videos I've seen, the entire procession from top to toe. So these are now stills from that video, which I can put on YouTube, which we can use to determine the total area, and from there we can work out the total people in that area. There's nobody in this part of Whitehall because they've moved on a bit to about there. That's the back of the procession. Jumping forward a bit, you can see a bit better. That's about halfway along the building to the left, with those 4 elongated things on the top, whatever they are. So that then, on the left, is the back of the crowd. Then they turn left over the bridge. The crowd thickens up briefly on the other side, then it thins out, turns left, then right around that triangular thing on the right, and carries on up the road. Moderate density up here to the square, then on up the road, quite dense in places, up to there, which is basically the head just before Blackfriars Bridge. You can see there's no more procession further on, and that is still before the bridge. So what you just saw in real time is that. Look in the right hand corner and you have your measurement stick for 100 meters. You can measure it yourself if you want, or I can save you the bother. The total distance comes to almost 2 kilometers, so 2,000 meters. The bridge and some bits of Whitehall and the bit directly after the bridge are about 25 meters wide. The rest isn't, it's more like 20. But let's assume the whole thing is the width of Westminster Bridge, which is the widest part, 25 meters, and that's 2,000 times 25, that's 50,000 square meters total area. So now imagine 2 of those square meters side by side, which gives you a nicely imaginable rectangle, which is a bloke of my height, 6 foot wide, and a bloke half my height, 3 foot deep. Think of a rectangle like that, you can probably imagine it on the ground. A rectangle, the width of a tallish bloke, 6 foot, and the depth of half a tallish bloke, 3 foot, with the tallish bloke in there for scale. That is also a tad under 2 square metres. 3 people could walk pretty comfortably side by side in that space. You couldn't get another row of 3 people in front, but you could just about squeeze a 4th person to one side in that 6 foot width, and then maybe another couple of people in front on average, not in one rectangle, but overall. So you could just about squeeze 6 people in that space, of which there are 25, because it's 2 square metres out of 50,000. So 6 times 25,000, that would then give you a very squashed 150,000. Much more realistic, 4 people in that 6 by 3 space would accommodate 100,000 people. So you've got an entirely comfortable 100,000 ranging up to an extremely uncomfortable 150,000. And people just don't walk in sardine fashion like that. If you're on top of somebody in front, you just hang back a little bit. So 4 in that space is much more realistic, so somewhere between 100 and 150,000. In order to get 3 million people in that 50,000 square metre space, you would need to get 120 people into that rectangle 6 by 3. Me plus 119 others. The somewhat downgraded 1 million people still requires fully 40 people in that same space. So maximum possible is 150,000, but that is very tight, and it also assumes, like I said, too much width. It assumes 25 metres width, Westminster Bridge width all the way, and it's not that. So the COP's original estimate of about 110,000 is probably the closest. This bloke used a crowd size calculator and it estimated 174,000, but that includes too much. We need to lose Trafalgar Square and half of Whitehall and that little bit in the middle and that last little bit. That would then bring his total down to about 140,000. I also tried double checking with a crowd sizing calculator, this one here, and I got 120,000 using 3 per square metre or 6 people per that 6 foot by 3 foot rectangle. So 100,000 on the comfortable side, 150,000 on the very much crushed side. Take your pick from that range, but it can't really go beyond either side of that. If Lado here, Mr. There was 3 million, if he'd come out and said thank you to the 150,000 people who showed up today. Next time, let's make it 200,000. The time after that, let's make it 250,000, that's 250,000. Let's get that million word in there. Well done, people, onwards and upwards. Would you have reacted to that? Oh, what a disappointment, we thought it was 3 million, how tragic. Would you have really said that? Of course you'd have said, wow, 150,000, that's fantastic. Wouldn't you? Obviously. And then there would have been absolutely zero space for anybody to then start poo-pooing the numbers as they have done. Think, oh, what a bunch of idiots, 3 million people, 1/3 of the total population of London in that tiny space, give me a break, who are these people? If Tommy had just not come out and lied about it, there would have been no space for any of that, and no option for people to make the attendees look ridiculous. So why do it? Because he lies about everything all the time. It's the only thing he knows. And in doing so, he does you a disservice and he makes you look silly. The people who buy into this, I'm not saying everybody did think there were 3 million, but there are plenty who are still saying that. And those people come back for more every time, which just makes it easier for him to carry on lying to you every time. Hope that clears things up.